Okay. Just me. Just me. Okay. Hello, good
Okay.
evening, and welcome to the first ever Kavanah program at Ballyhoo. I am your host, I guess I should say, I am your host and facilitator, Madeline Rosenberg, but this is a community thing for community. So feel free to discuss at any time throughout. Let's see. Can you all see?
Yes.
So far, so good. Yay. So just a couple of housekeeping things. This is a once a month program. For most of the year, I have it lined out, and it should be the last Monday of every month at 6 p.m. So that makes it easy. Kitties are welcome. Always welcome. And it's going to be a different topic, and some months we'll hopefully do in person, which would be exciting. So I thought I would kick off with ethical consumption because of a conversation I had with a friend. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of a heavy topic, especially what with, world going ons and all. So I apologize in advance for that. I don't mean for it to be like super depressing, and that's not the purpose of this at all. So we'll just like get into it and see where we end up. Hopefully go to the next thing. There we go. Okay. First off, I am not here to convert you to any religion, diet, company, or lifestyle. I don't care if you're vegetarian, vegan, carnivore, omnivore, any of that. I don't care what religion or philosophy you adhere to or what your personal practices or beliefs are. Judy's here. And she used her actual name. That's exciting. But because we are all human in Western society, and that is like huge underpinnings of our society and culture, we will talk about religion, philosophy, and ethics in our discussions for all of the year, mostly just because that's a good basis. It's a touch point that everybody can be like, oh yeah. We will also include science, history, current events, you name it, personal experience, things that you hear about or read about, bring it all to the table. And then at the end, this is just a discussion point or a place for discussion because so much of our culture is internet based, where there is no or very little context or nuance, and we're losing the ability, especially what with the pandemic keeping us apart, to be able to dialogue about things without fear of backlash. It's monoculture. You either agree with everybody or you don't speak at all, and that's disturbing. So you can say whatever you want here. However, we do need to be respectful about it. That's definitely not going to be a problem with our attendees tonight. You're all wonderful. I love you all. Thank you for being here. And we will be recording the session so that people who intended to come but weren't able can participate. The word Kavanah is Hebrew for intention. And so as I was putting this together, that's the basis of what I was trying to get to, is discovering what our intentions are. Hi, Judy. My intention is to derail myself by saying hi. To uncover our intentions about things and why we think the way we do about things and what it is we're even thinking about. So let's start. What was the last thing that you bought? Who made it? What was the last thing you ate? Who made that? Where was it grown? Who grew it? How was it grown? When was it grown? What did your food eat? And where did that come from? So as you look at the pictures across the screen here, we have a very nice meal on the left, and then a CAFO chicken operation Those are meat birds. They're not laying hens. And believe it or not, they are kept cage free, possibly. I'm not sure of the overall space of that building, but possibly even free range. They have sunlight. They are not in a box, and they have at least 2 square feet per bird, from what I can see. You'll notice that there's nothing to forage. Their feeders are on the right, their waterers are on the left. There's really nowhere for them to perch. And that's their entire existence. Below,
and yet that's considered free range.
Yes, legally, yep. If it were blacked out and their only light came from the overhead lights, then it would not be free range or cage free. Yeah. Below, we have some young people hard at work in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and we'll discuss them. They're working in mines so we can have cell phones. To the right of that is a mountain. You can see the bulldozer on top of textiles in Chile. More and more, they are becoming overflowed. The dumps and waste sites. There's waste sites specific for textile and fabric, and they're overflowing. And then on the bottom, we have migrant laborers at work picking, I believe, strawberries. I'm not sure, but either strawberries or tomatoes. So what does kosher mean? Anyone? Bueller? Okay. It can get really complicated. For our purposes tonight, we're going to keep it super simple. So the letters of the law are on the right. Land animals have to have cloven hooves, which means they're split, not a single ungulate. Deer, goats, sheep, cows, and they must chew their cud. So it has to be a ruminant. Seafood must have fins and scales, so no shellfish, no snails and clams, no catfish, no shark. Oh wait, yeah, no shark because they don't have scales. No dolphins. It is forbidden to eat birds of prey. Chicken is okay, turkey is okay, which is kind of weird because domesticated poultry, even waterfowl, are omnivores. So like technically, but they're not raptors. So I think that's the distinction. Meat and dairy can't be eaten together. And because of the edict, you can't boil a kid in its mother's milk. Animals have to be slaughtered in a ritualistic way. They have to be completely drained of blood. And we only use the forequarter of the animal, so no rump roast. That has to do with Jacob wrestling the angel and winning, and it's something to do with like pulling the sciatic nerve. So we set that portion aside. The head Jew's coming. Most insects are not kosher, with the exception of some locusts, which I don't think many of us harvest. But if you don't carefully wash a vegetable and there's an insect on it, it's not kosher. And then any non-kosher food that gets mixed with a kosher food automatically renders it non-kosher. And there's a little infographic down there that kind of makes it easier. So then there's the fence around what's literally kosher law, right? So these things have to be done in order for something to be kosher per the Bible. And then the way that Jews interpret that differs, but then there's this general consensus, like separate plates and separate silverware and separate cups, like basically 2 kitchens, one for meat and one for milk. Waiting, I think it's 6 hours between eating something meat and eating something milk so that they can't mix in your stomach, you know, and all of that is to preserve kosher law and preserve holiness. So I'd like to ask what it seems meaningful to you about adhering to those strict laws.
I'd imagine it's safer.
Mm-hmm.
As far as cleanliness and processing goes.
Mm-hmm. Especially for initially you know, in biblical times, a desert dwelling pastoral nomadic people
Mhm.
using, you know, clay pots. Yeah, it would be way safer. They're considered the first public health and safety laws. What else? Anyone? No.
What are we looking for?
We're not, just, it's just a discussion. Do you
Okay.
have any thoughts?
I hadn't
Not a-
considered a lot of that because especially the meat and the dairy together. There goes anything with a cheese sandwich, you know?
Yep. No cheese steaks, no chicken cordon bleu, no cheeseburgers.
How do grains mix in with this? Is this all just meat and dairy that we're talking about here?
Mostly meat and dairy. There's a third section called parv that's neither meat nor dairy, like nuts, which are protein but not a meat, and eggs, which are protein but technically not a meat because they haven't been born, but there's a potential for them to become meat.
Okay.
And you have to look at the labels to know what's what.
Is everything labeled these days?
Most things are, if they're seeking any kind of kosher consumers, or most things in the grocery store are. I should have brought a package just to show you, but some things aren't. And, you know, if that's your dietary choice, then you don't buy those items because they're not certified.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the literal law, and then there's the spirit of the law. So the literal law says, don't boil a kid in its mother's milk. And then the spirit of the law says, keep completely separate kitchens. What's the difference there? There's no right or wrong answer. Just how does that resonate for you? How does that feel for you?
So do people actually have two kitchens to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
And let me tell you how that passes down. Eventually, the people who keep kosher in the family die, and then those who do not inherit a ton of dishes.
Okay.
We have so much silverware.
Oh, so you can't even mix the silverware.
No,
how do you keep it
they
separate?
Keep completely separate.
That's complicated. That's what I think.
It is very.
I mean, I'm sure once you're used to it, it's not a big deal, but
And a lot of washing up.
yeah.
Right. And with the washing up, so you have two sets of dishes. Do you get two dishwashers?
Oh, wow. Huh.
In an Orthodox household, you might.
Wow. Huh.
Hmm.
So what are the ripple effects of kosher law? Some things to consider are food availability. You can't just send your beef to wherever. It has to go to a kosher slaughterhouse. It has to be performed in a kosher way. It has to be overseen by a rabbi. It has to be certified every step of the way. So you can't just do that anywhere. Right now, if you want, there's one Kroger in Hikes Point in Louisville that keeps pretty good stock, but otherwise you've got to go to like Cincinnati to get kosher meat. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So slaughter availability and facilities and food miles. How far does the cow have to travel to get to the kosher slaughter facility? And how far does the kosher meat have to travel to get to somebody's plate?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're old laws, is refrigeration allowed?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That's food safety. Yes.
Okay. So I'm thinking, I guess I'm thinking Amish stuff here, conflating two ancient ideas, which may not make any sense. Okay.
Food waste, which I can't speak to, but if you're only using the forequarter of the cow, what happens to the hind end?
They could sell it to somebody else.
Hopefully.
Non-kosher, yeah.
Your personal philosophy, what I do or do not eat, and how I feel that impacts my relationship with my deity, or how I'm contributing overall to the world, and then somebody's relationship to the world. If I keep kosher and you do not, and you invite me out to lunch, where do we go? If I keep kosher and you do not, and I come over to your house for dinner, what do you feed me? And how do I dialogue with you about that, either ahead of time or on the day, in a way that doesn't negatively impact our relationship?
Right.
As
Now, the same as people with food allergies.
Right. Yep.
Oh, interesting comparison. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a spiritual food allergy, I guess. So down here in the right, we have what's called a CAFO, Confined Animal Feed Operation. This is one that actually got in trouble in 2011 for manure. You can see it's very wet. There's a whole lot of animals. And all of you have been to my house, so you know how much poop there is. And I don't have that many cows. I don't have any cows, but so there were 3 or 4 states with operations in 2011 that got in trouble for manure runoff. It's not a great thing to have that kind of slurry. It is used as a fertilizer on crops, but it's not great to have that slurry just entering the waterway anywhere at any point. So believe it or not, those animals could be kosher. There is no difference. And I intentionally did not include any photos of hanging meat or slaughterhouses or anything, you know, even ones that weren't graphic, just, you know, because I didn't know who would attend and your personal philosophies. But yeah, there's no difference in a commercial kosher slaughterhouse and a commercial any other kind of slaughterhouse. The process is, except for the moment of death, the process is by and large the same. The cuts may be different. The hanging time may be different because, of course, kosher meat can't have blood in it.
Draining.
Yes. Yeah. But other than that, it's the same, and they get hit for the same kind of violations. Unsafe working conditions, unsafe for the animals, disregard for the animals. And the reason that we don't kosher slaughter, availability. So we would have to drive a very long way, transport animals a very long way in order to have them kosher slaughtered, which is expense that we don't necessarily want to pass on to the consumer, and it's stress on them and on us. I'm not comfortable with it because I don't believe it's the best death. The purpose of the kosher procedure of slaughter was intended to minimize harm and anguish to the animal. So it's supposed to be quick and clean. And it was before we had guns. And it was before we had made a mass production of the death process, so to speak. So it is very quick and clean. And actually, if you have to kill your own animal and you don't own a gun, that procedure is considered the best death. But it's not the best that we can give them. The process in commercial slaughterhouses and small USDA inspected slaughterhouses where we take our meat is captive bolt. It looks like a gun. It's got a steel rod in it. It's placed directly at the back of the animal's skull. It renders them insensible, brain death in like a second, if that. So they don't even have a bad day. They have like one bad moment and that's it. Kosher slaughter, their throats are slit, and it takes, even though it's an artery, it can take 30 seconds to render them completely insensible. And that's 29 seconds too long for me.
That's a long time.
And if that's the deciding line, then even though I raise animals that could be kosher in a kosher way, you know, maximizing their health and wellness, then I'm going to elect not to participate in that. Your mileage may vary. Then there's what's ethically kosher, which is a little bit different. This is more of the spirit of the law, right? So if kosher laws are intended to promote holiness, to bring us closer to the divine and what is divine about the entire food process, that really doesn't look very divine to me. It's not someplace I would want to go as a cow. Then ethical kosher considers the holiness of the entire process, not just that end goal, not just the procedure. So less of the letter and more of the spirit. So how was the animal raised? How was it killed? And who does it serve? If you look at this, this is a lovely cow raised by my friend Carrie, who is with us this evening. I don't know if she can talk or not. Hi, Carrie. I'm glad you could make it. I believe this is Esmeralda. I hope she tells me yes or no. Anyway, we went to her place.
Let me see. Who is this?
Number 14.
Oh, yes, that's Esmeralda.
I love her.
That's
She's
Esmeralda.
I love Esmeralda. She wouldn't let me pet her, but that's okay. That's her choice. I respect her personal boundaries. But look at that field that she's standing in. Is that not fantastic? And that's her whole life. She is queen of that field along with her friends. And she lives in relation with, I don't know if she has sisters there, but she certainly has daughters and nieces. And that's her whole jam. She's not going to be beef, as far as I know. She has produced beef, yes?
Yes, she's going to make baby beef. We're still building our herd, so we keep the girls and we butcher the boys.
As we do with rams. Not all of them, but some of them. But yeah, so I mean, the difference, where is the manure going in that scenario? And how much runoff is there going to be? Because it's going directly into the soil and it's feeding that amazing grass. So how was it killed? Theoretically, not Esmeralda, but theoretically, a grass-fed cow like this. I know Carrie takes her beef and we take our lambs to the nearest ethical slaughterhouse. So you can see in the middle, we've taken ours to Trackside before, and this was their opening day. Those are people who live with whom we live in community. They're one county over, 15 minutes. And yeah, so, that answers both questions. How was it killed ethically? And who does it serve? Not only us, but our community. We're providing jobs, we're feeding families, and it's a gift. And then, Zeke down there with his happy lamb bone, it feeds them as well. So even our pets are benefiting from this system. Now, I want to talk. I'm sorry?
Nothing wasted.
Yeah, exactly. That's the goal. That really is the goal. So when we take a ram to slaughter, we get the head back and we sell the horns and the skull. I've gotten the hide back. I didn't the last time, but that was a whole different broken foot story. We get the hide back and I tanned them the last time, time before last. We get the bones back and they go for bone broth and they go to the dogs. So do the organs. And we eat the meat and we sell the meat as well. And what we make from those animals goes back to supporting the animals that are still here. So it's a whole system. And it is a sacrifice. Those sheep didn't ask to die. Some of them would have eventually begged for death. We have pulled sheep and horned sheep on our farm. And we don't, as a rule, breed them specifically for this, but sometimes we have boys that have what's called fatal horn, where it turns into their scalps. And that's, yeah, yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And like there was one the last time that had the most beautiful fleece, but his horns were bad. They were never going to get better. It got to the point we were trimming them every about 2 weeks, and that's not sustainable for 10 to 12 years. So he was meat.
Yeah.
And, he pays for the ones that are still here, and that's amazing. I can't feel bad about that. But I'm going to take this another step deeper. We raised pigs. We raised them on pasture. They were fantastic. They were the easiest things we've ever raised. They got fat really fast. We butchered them. We had people buy some of it, and then we had some in the freezer. And I have eaten that pork. I don't, as a Jew, as a rule, eat pork. However, to me, that meat and the system in which it was raised and the end product is way closer to holiness than getting a chicken from the grocery store. That chicken probably had a life like the ones you saw earlier in an earlier slide. And I know everything that fed those pigs, and I know every day of their life and death. So again, you know, considering the whole process, how was it raised? How was it killed? And who does it serve? There was like less than 100 total food miles in those pigs. I can't say that about a Costco chicken. Okay, so we've talked about meat, but what about plants? Because not everybody eats meat, and hopefully we all eat some plants. Yes?
Yes.
Whatever you eat, no matter what your food system, something has to die to sustain your life. And I think this is a key thing that people forget because, again, I'm going to go one step deeper than the surface. If you till up, well, okay, if you take a plot of land undeveloped and you cut down all the trees and burn them, and you tear up all the soil and kill everything that's on there and turn it over again and spray liquid cow manure from the CAFO operation we just saw in order to make things grow again, and you evict all of the songbirds and all of the insects and all of the deer and all of the wildlife, is that ethically kosher? Is that sustainable? In other words, and I'm just going to touch on this, for a vegan lifestyle where everything is plant-based, but it is not wild foraged and you didn't grow it, something still had to die to sustain your life, and probably more than in a multi-layered small producing operation where you have, like Carrie's or like mine, where you have chickens tilling up the manure that's in the ground to help fertilize and break up any unwanted insects, and they're feeding themselves higher protein diet than the Costco chickens are. And then the cows are dropping the manure and managing the grass and aerating the soil with their hooves, and then we eat them, and, you know, circle of life. So again, if you are growing plants, what is the impact to you personally? You might feel better, you know, especially if you're, well, if you're diabetic, you can still eat lamb, but depending on your individual needs, I've got a friend who's allergic to beef. So, you know, she can't eat red meat at all, thanks to a tick, ever again in her entire life. So she probably eats more plants, yay her. And maybe communally you're part of a CSA, and so you're picking up vegetables from your local farmer down the road, and all of those dollars and that effort is staying in your community, and that's amazing. Globally, if you can get them locally, that's fantastic. But how many of us have eaten a tomato in the last month? Are tomatoes in season right now?
Nope.
How many of us have eaten an apple in the last month?
Me.
I have a hand. There it is.
Yeah, grocery store apples on average are 18 months old.
Yeah.
They're dipped in wax. Grocery store eggs are dipped in bleach. Yeah. Do you like avocados? What are the food miles on those?
Very much.
We have become accustomed to eating cheap and out of season. So what is the impact globally and capitalistically? Who's profiting off that? So in Jewish belief, no one can exist apart from the community. We're all part of the symbiote, right? So looking at our food systems, what does that mean? If you didn't grow it, who grew
You
it?
can't eat it.
No, you can still eat it.
Well, it's somebody in the community. If you're going to keep
Right.
it within the community.
I mean, even you and Mary swapping garden stuff, or me and Carrie swapping garden stuff, you know, that stays in your community.
Yeah.
And I want to preface this by saying, in my environmental ethics course, we did this whole section. It was so depressing. To this day, it's depressing. On like, depending on where you live, what is your environmental impact every year? If Alex and I moved into a tent out in the middle of the pasture and drank out of the pond and had a composting toilet and never drove to the store and never took another plane ride and didn't plug in any of our devices, only did solar power, we would still not lessen our environmental impact because we are part of American society. It's that bad. There is nothing at the end of the day that you can do personally to solve all of this. So I don't for a second in any of these programs want you to think that that's the point. The point is just to think. So let's turn a little bit now to from the Judeo to the Christian perspective. What is transubstantiation? Nobody went to seminary, huh?
That is when the body of Christ goes into you and you become part of Christ.
Right. So it's the idea that through mindful consumption, right, the priest says, this is the body of Christ, and you receive it. Mundane objects like a cracker become holy and sanctify your physical being. Bottom line, it is the spiritual equivalent of you are what you eat, right? So we're going to extrapolate a little bit. So the text for taking communion is, this is my body that was broken for you. This is my blood which was shed for you. Do this, you eat or drink that object in remembrance of me, of the sacrifice that I gave. There's some beautiful squash over there. And we have one of my delightful little piggies who love donuts and cupcakes over here. How often are you consuming in remembrance of the process? How often are you transubstantiating? I've got 3 thoughts here, or 3 collective thoughts: ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? This is a literal process. So the grass grows, like I said before, the cow eats the grass, the cow poops, it makes plants and grass grow. The cow or the plants, if you've got a field of tomatoes, they're harvested, we eat those things, and one day we also become grass. The natural process. So again, in the Bible, we're given dominion over the earth, but we forget that rights come with responsibilities. Wendell Berry talks about this being, the ledger that nature keeps. There's a cost to everything. And if we're spending more than we're saving, nature eventually is going to fail. That capital will fail. So what does a fair system look like? What even is a fair system? So it's something that, like, from just basically, it would take care of the soil, right? It would take care of the nature that's in that area. For instance, we can plant, we just divided our property down the draw from the pond. And so now we have this wildlife refuge in the middle of the pastures where the domestic animals can't get there to graze. and wildlife can just kind of do its thing. Natural species can come up. Hopefully we'll get some more trees, which will provide shade for the domestic animals, right? But there's a wildlife corridor there. There's wildlife friendly certifications for fencing and management and things like that. Non-lethal predator management would be another example. You know, we use EULA to bark at the coyotes. We don't shoot the coyotes. And part of that fair system is, you know, we had a skunk in the hen house one year and it wiped out all the young chicks. Should I have shot the skunk? The skunk was doing what skunks do, right? And it's an opportunistic animal, and I provided an opportunity. That's on me. That's not on the skunk.
Yeah.
That's a fair system. What does it look like to the people who plant, the people who harvest? What does it look like as far as feeding those plants? You know, chemical fertilizers versus natural fertilizers. And that goes back to maintaining soil health, fair soil health. What does it look like to the animals, the system that they're raised in, the amount of fear that they experience through their entire lives, whether they're raised alone or in family systems? And then the end, what is the end like for them? So you may or may not be a farmer tonight, but what dominion do you exercise? We all have some.
The garden.
Basically what you buy if you don't garden or grow anything.
Yep.
What you buy and uh-oh, telephone. Hold on. I have a sick cat.
Hopefully good news about Steve. We exercise dominion in gathering all of the cats and hopefully making and keeping them well and finding them amazing homes. That's caretaking. That's part of the system. That's respect for other creatures.
I didn't always have a farm. I'm from the suburbs. I became a farmer. But even when I just had my yard, you know, or a patio or whatever, you are definitely part of the system, even if you don't grow anything, by being kind to what's there. So like I never sprayed my yard for dandelions, or, you know, there's always something small that you can do for Mother Nature that gives back, no matter if you're in an apartment or a 40-acre farm.
Watering all of the birds every day.
What does that? Or putting seeds out for the animals and the birds.
Buying broccoli and blueberries for the groundhogs that live under your deck.
Uh-huh.
So where is your power? I think we've all discussed that. And who in our systems is powerless? The whole world was created for me, and I am but dust and ashes. Since World War II, we have this lovely thing called planned obsolescence and buzzwords that become like free range and cage free and pastured that become meaningless if you really start to dig. Do you know that you can grow vegetables hydroponically and be certified organic? You can grow them without soil, no soil at all. Tomato plant, water, and somehow that's organic. Show me where that happens in nature.
Nowhere.
So things like, and you've probably heard about these before, cell phone parts, cocoa, fast fashion, the plight of the vegetable harvesters. Where is your power and who is powerless? Let's talk about clothes now, what we wear. The fashion and apparel industry is responsible for approximately 1/3 of all microplastics found in the ocean. Yeah. You know, they're now finding microplastics as part of the muscle tissue of animals. Like literally, we are eating plastic that we put into the world. That's not great. And if you're not wearing natural fibers, cotton, hemp, wool, linen, bamboo to a certain extent, but the process is really terrible for the environment. You are wearing plastic. You're wearing petroleum, actually, and that's not great. So at some point, all of your used clothing goes into the ocean as a microplastic. 80% of the environmental impact of a garment is in the life of the garment. Every time you wash clothes, you're shedding off fibers. Every time you put them in the dryer and clean out your dryer lint, that dryer lint used to be your clothing. And it all goes where? Where does it go? It blows out in your dryer vent. It washes out in your drain pipe into the environment. 1 in 6 people worldwide work in the fashion industry, and most of them are women, 80%. 93% of brands don't pay garment workers a living wage. And when those women try to organize and protest the working conditions and ask for things that are safe, like not putting bars on the windows so they can escape, in the case of Rana Plaza, they often experience violence. They're beaten until they shut up and go back to work. The fashion industry is the second highest consumer of water worldwide, producing 20% of global water waste. One cotton t-shirt or a pair of jeans takes over 3,000 liters of water from start to finish. Cotton is an incredibly thirsty plant. So, and it's often grown in hot climates like Texas or this American South. Now, the humidity serves it well, but it is a thirsty, thirsty plant that will soak up as much water as you can put on it. Clothing and textile production produces more emissions than international plane travel and shipping combined. And international plane travel is one of the leading causes of emissions, as again, the pandemic showed us. So what are you wearing? So we talked about how we have power. We have buying power. We're all consumers, right? We choose what we buy. The big word on this screen is boycott. That's the personal word for sanction. So when a government does it to another government, it's a sanction. When consumers do it to a company, it's called a boycott. And that word is getting bandied about a lot right now. Do you know why sanctions work? Or when they work?
They work because they hurt.
Who do they hurt?
They hurt the people with the money.
Hopefully, yes.
They hurt the owners of the companies. Eventually, though, that trickles down to the people who work there too.
Right, right. So the reason that we're sanctioning right now, in the case of Ukraine, is we're trying to hit the people that will have the most political clout as well. You don't go for, when you drop a bomb, it's generally on a hospital, a church, a school. It's hurting people like you and I. The people with the money don't care. There's lots of people like us. You want to hurt those people at the top and make them stop doing what they're doing. Right. But it takes a whole lot of boycotting to make that happen. And in recent years, boycotting has started to become less effective because it becomes an internet fad. Like, oh, who are we boycotting this week? And then, like in the case of Chick-fil-A, who they were recently boycotted when somebody else was in office. And the day after the boycott was their highest day ever because of the people who turned out to support them. So it sort of backfired. But it is within our power to do. My personal sanction is against Wendy's. And again, to reiterate, I don't expect you to jump on every boycott wagon there is. I've picked one. Just pick one. You can do one thing. And it's all about your intention. What is your intention? I don't often quote Stephen Colbert, but sometimes he gets it right. The global marketplace is someplace where we export work because there are no regulations in other countries. They can't afford to have environmental and labor regulations. They can't afford to have safety regulations because their economy needs the money that our companies bring in. To have work happen in whatever conditions we want, what can we live with? We don't want a dirty river, but we don't see theirs.
Right.
And the products come back to me cheap enough to throw away without thinking about it. Bought a $5 t-shirt, wore out in 6 months. I can toss it. So the idea for the Kavanah program throughout this year came from the fact that this is a Shemitah year, which happens every 7 years. And I put the quote from Leviticus. I was recently part of a Jewish farmers conference, and we discussed collectively how we can't really afford to take a whole year off, because in our society and our culture, where the whole culture doesn't do that, we would lose traction. We would basically become non-entities because the market would forget about us. If you say to a restaurateur, hey, I'm not going to bring you eggs for a year because it's a Shemitah year, he goes and finds somebody else, and next year you don't have a contract. So as Jewish farmers, we were trying to find ways to, again, spirit of the law instead of letter of the law, right? And so one of the things that I've come up with is maybe doing like free for all Friday, where whatever vegetables and whatever milk I have left at the end of the week, anybody can take. Programs like this that are completely free, although we do accept love offerings, but that's not necessarily at all. Just, you know, to get the wheels turning and build community. And I mean, we sit at home, at least I know I do, and I know Lori does. We sit at home all the time thinking like, what can I do? What can I possibly do? And it seems like a never-ending tidal wave of badness. So we need places like this where we can remember that everybody can do one thing. You can do something. You're not powerless and you're not alone. But here's a thought, because I like to challenge. What if we rested instead of taking a Sabbath from farming? What if we rested from exploitation? In 2 days, it's Ash Wednesday. Lent is starting, and that's normally in Christian tradition a time where people refrain from doing things that are fun or doing things that are potentially harmful to them. Also, like people who love candy will give up candy for a month, or people who love TV will try not to binge watch Netflix for a month. But what if we gave ourselves a fast from exploitation and consumerism? And I'm not even saying don't buy anything for a month, but I'm inviting you to be mindful about every purchase and every meal. So for 1 month, when you ingest your delicious tea in your mug from Five Below, no shame. Where did it come from? And even just, I mean, it doesn't matter where it came from, but give thanks. Just sending that intention out that like I'm enjoying this cup of tea and I'm grateful for the people halfway across the world who grew it for me. That's something. And, you know, there's, at the end, I have some resources, and in one of the films, it's that person. In one of the films that talks about fast fashion, there's a lady who has experienced a lot of this. She's a single mother. She had to send her child away because she didn't have child care and she couldn't bring her to the factory. There's chemicals that are harmful for children. And I was like, girl, they're harmful for you too. Like neither of you should be breathing those things. Long hours. She has no life. All she does is sew clothes for us to buy. She's trying to give her kid a better education, as are we all. Trying to give her a better life, trying to have a better life herself, hoping that we appreciate what she does. She literally said that. Like, we sew the clothes for people to buy and we just hope that they appreciate the clothes. So another Jewish principle, tikkun olam, which is repairing the world, which is what we're talking about all year, whether it's just repairing ourselves, repairing our little corner of the world, repairing our community, our country, the literal world, whatever you feel like you can take on. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. Buy one local thing, commit to find one natural hair care product, use one less makeup product. This is kind of, I don't think any of us use makeup on a regular basis anymore. So
Forgotten how.
right.
Why you gotta call me out like that? Why you gotta call me out like that?
No, I'm
Natalie?
not. I'm not. I
With
was
my
just
big
like,
hair, with my big hairspray hair and my eyeliner
and your Tammy Faye lashes out to here. I know you
and my
double up.
lashes.
So
Your
attacked.
plastic lashes. Mhm.
Thanks a lot. Maybe I'll have to give up hairspray for Lent.
As I sit here in my brand new Kohl's vest with my Goodwill long sleeve shirt and I think I got these at Kohl's jeans, but it was long enough ago I forgot. And my slippers from Poland that are handmade. My one good thing, I supported an artist. Everyone can do something, and you don't have to fix the whole world. You just have to do what you can do. And if all of that is just living your normal life and just giving thanks every time, that's good enough. That's something. So this is a world that, wow. I just realized that once upon a time, this was a world I envisioned on paper. That's pretty good. And it still doesn't feel like enough. But, you know, Zoe, that's actually Zelda when she was little. Yeah. She came to the farm and, you know, I mean, one kid touching one chicken. I wish I could remember the quote that my friend who's a vet says. But like the reason that she takes her grandkids around to interact with nature. Well, hi there, Miss Makeup. Is you can't care about something that you don't know. So by knowing it firsthand, by Zelda touching a sheep or touching a chicken or petting a cat or whatever it is, she begins to be curious about something. And then she begins to care about it. And then she values it. And eventually she'll protect it. One person at a time. So, you know, you might not knit. But I know Zoe got value out of my wool before finals. Squishing balls of roving. I mean, stress relief, that's pretty good. In the middle, that's that beautiful Boston butt from one of our pigs. Made sure it didn't go to waste. And, you know, like Alex smoking that might have been a ham. Anyway, by him smoking that meat, you know, it takes hours and hours and hours for the payoff. It actually takes days because first you thaw it out, then you coat it, then you know, let it marinate, then you smoke it, and that's a whole day in and of itself. It doesn't happen overnight, but you keep trying.
No.
One thing at a time, one person at a time, and you protect the deer, and you protect the mama duck with her little babies. That's one of the things I love most about our farms, small farms like mine and Carrie's. Is, and you know, even Judy, even you with your work that is your life's mission, whether you want it to be or not. You know, you rescue a feral mama cat and her kittens, and because you took them in, they get to live in community. Matt has brothers that will stay together for their entire lives because you do that. That's a beautiful gift. That's using your powers for good.
And poop.
Yeah. And then here are some resources if you want to be further depressed or educated, depending on your state of mind. Some days it's too much and some days you're curious. So they are here and you will be able to access those. And if you want me to email them or post them, I am happy to do so. If you've had enough, I completely understand. How did this feel for you? How do you feel now versus when we started?
What are Immokalee workers?
Immokalee is the city in Florida where most of America's tomatoes are grown. I forgot to touch on that. I'm a terrible person. Okay, because like this is really near and dear to me. This is why I have my personal boycott, and I forgot to talk about it. So Immokalee, Florida is like the capital and has been the capital of slave labor in the United States for like the past 30, 40 years. Most of the nation's tomatoes are grown there. And the workers until recently lived in deplorable conditions. Whatever you're thinking for like factory garment workers in Bangladesh, it's like that. They were living sometimes in buses, in mobile homes, in some cases, depending who the boss was. They're normally brought here being told that they are given work, like you're going to make a living wage and you'll be able to send it to your family and you can go home at the end of the season and it will all be good. And then they get here and they, in some cases, are actually locked in their houses. The days start at like 4 a.m. and end well after dark, and they are paid per pound, and it's pennies. And that chain, that supply chain, is what puts tomatoes in the grocery store pretty much across the nation. If they refuse to work or demand better living wages or better living conditions, their children can be taken from them. They can be locked in the house. They can be beaten. It is not uncommon for women to be raped in the field because they have no recourse. They have since formed a coalition and the word got out and things are starting to change. However, they had asked Wendy's and Publix for 4 cents more a pound. 4 cents. Doesn't sound like anything, but it makes the difference between slavery and a living wage for them. And Wendy's and Publix have both repeatedly refused. There's not enough consumer pressure. So I don't eat at Wendy's anymore. That's my personal choice. I don't have the choice of not shopping at Publix because we don't have one. So I just don't eat at Wendy's because their tomatoes come from slave wages, slave labor.
That's crazy.
Yep. So you can learn about that there. The story of stuff is fantastic. That's it's animated, so it's fun to watch. And it's, well, if it can be fun, because it's the story of how planned obsolescence happened and where your stuff goes, how we got to the point that we're at. And they have actually a lot of good videos now in addition to the original one. So I highly recommend Story of Stuff. The mining in the Democratic Republic of Congo, I didn't talk much about that either. Again, as with most of these horrible things around the world, their economy relies on mining for minerals for our cell phones. Cell phones are a part of our lives now. You can't do business without it. You can't have relationships without it. The past 2 years, we would have all been lost without them. However, there's planned obsolescence there and an obscene gap between what these people make for mining their natural resources, right? We talked about the economy of nature. They're depleting their economy of nature in order to have capital to make their lives a little bit better. And that's paid in large part by children. They don't go to school, they go work at the mines because they can make more than pretty much any other job and they fit in holes that grown men can't. So again, in part, it's a type of slavery, and in part, it's their choice because it's better than any other choice that they can make. And that sucks. And I don't really know how to balance that for me. I would love to hear if you have any ideas. Because I can't not have a cell phone. And I try and use them for as long as I can. But eventually, because planned obsolescence and technology, they force you into getting a new one.
Right.
For $1,000. And what did they get for the minerals? And I know there's recycling programs, and now something positive. There are certification programs that Sony and Samsung and Apple and a few other companies have signed on to, where they are certifying that their minerals are mined ethically and are conflict free. However, as with the textile industry, if you dig down, a lot of times it's not worth the paper it's printed on. So what do you do about that? I mean, like, do we do the Sally Struthers and adopt a child so that like I can give them a better life and offset my having a cell phone? Like, I really don't know. Thoughts?
It takes some thinking.
Yeah, right? Yeah. But something, there's got to be something. The True Cost is a documentary. It's worth watching. It's about what you'd expect. But there's a lady in there that grows organic cotton in Texas, and she explains why she does that and how she came to do it. And you get to, I mean, as depressing as some of this is, sometimes it's nice to just be able to put a face to something. Because like I said, you know, if I go and look at a t-shirt at TJ Maxx and it says made in Bangladesh, I can think about the woman that I saw and her life and, you know, give her thanks or make a different choice or check out what the company values are or something. Because I raise fiber animals, there's a lot of expectation, like Judy said, that like I'm Amish and I'm just going to make all my own stuff. And as Carrie can attest, that is like not viable.
Knit your underwear.
Yeah, right. But like you can weave and like make all your own stuff. Like, no, I do not have time to do that. I don't. But I can try and raise ethical products to make a fair wage, which I don't make. I can't even pay myself, y'all. In order to buy products that are ethically and sustainably made. I can try to do that. There's a little bit on the impact of your food choices, and then a couple of things that kind of talk about sanctions and explain like how a sanction works, in case you're curious about that. Are there any other thoughts? Any feelings? You all look sad now, except for Carrie, and that makes me sad.
Thanks, Madeline.
I'm not sad because I have stuff to think about and now I can just determine my one thing. I can do at least one thing.
You can do one thing.
Maybe even two.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But don't push it to 3. Slow down. Slow down.
I'm too old for 3. Yeah. I'd fall down. I'd break my hip. That's the end. Somebody would have to mine that metal for my hip.
Some child.
I'm a Congo hip. Oh no. We wouldn't want that. But I can do one thing. I actually am feeling better. I look sad because I have a sick cat. It's been a long day. But yeah.
I hope he
a different better. Rescue. Not a shed kitty, a different one.
Steve.
Doesn't look good. Yeah.
Oh, Steve.
He's a lovely man. He's had a good life. Maybe he'll get better.
We're sending him all of the thoughts and prayers.
Thank you. At least if he doesn't, he's had a good life. Pardon?
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to light a candle for Steve.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not allowed to have kitties. So I
Aw.
live like people's kitties. I do have a barn
Aw.
cat, but
I was gonna say you have murder cat.
Steve is murder cat. There are several half mice out on the sidewalk. Bunny heads, bunny butts, bunny bits. I actually retrieved from Steve's death jaw, pried his mouth open, and took out 3 bunnies that survived. 4 bunnies didn't make it. The mice didn't make it. I did CPR on a rabbit with cardboard. Because Steve's out there raiding all the bunny nests.
See, you're doing your part.
Well, he may not be raiding them anymore.
And that's Steve's karma.
It's a circle of life. He eats them.
Right?
He'd eat the whole thing if I gave him time.
Only if you feed him to the bunnies.
I'll plant him in the yard and he'll be grass. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
He'll give back.
Yep. So anyway, yeah, thank you. I appreciate this because now I can think about things and not just the state of the world. And
Yeah, right.
the state of the cat. I can think about other ways to improve because I think we all sit around all day and think, oh, God, everything sucks. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And now we can at least think about one thing.
What's your
Maybe
one
2.
thing?
Maybe 2. Whoops.
And then
Scott's
next
leaving
month
him.
you can tell me what your thing is.
You may not
Pressure.
want to know.
Okay.
Who had a
Hold on, Scott's here.
So yeah, so this is all I have for you for this month. Next month will be less depressing and less like heavy world stuff. I'm calling it growth, violence, and manifestation because spring is the most violent season. If you've ever watched like leaves come out on a tree or even plants come up from the soil, it is literally a rending of the earth or the skin of the bark. It is intense, and birth is intense, and allergies are intense. So using that as our natural touch point, we're going to talk about like where we are all are, because stuff happens in the garden when we're not out there in the winter. When it's cold, things are happening under the snow, and things have been happening in us under the snow for the past 2 years and through the winter. And so we're going to talk about like what is coming up and what are we hopeful for and what are we working toward. Things. And then April, I'm hoping we'll be in person with sheep. And if you can't make it, I still am planning to do Zoom. I just need a little practice on figuring out how to do like Zoom and stuff doing at the same time. But I got 2 months. I can get there.
You've got time.
I think you need to recruit Alex as your lovely Vanna White.
He was here.
Yes.
Did he leave me?
Oh, he left.
Very dare.
He left a while ago.
He's gone.
Where did everyone else go? Carrie's not in it. How do I make you be in the thing?
No, how come they're not in boxes?
I'm literally looking at everyone.
There.
I'm looking
There
at
we go.
everybody in a haunted house. I don't know
There's
what happened.
Desmond.
Happy.
If
Now
you look
she's
under
happy.
the
Desmond.
cat, if you
Come
look
here,
under the
Desmond.
cat, it says I am not a cat.
This is a cat.
Oh.
A
It's
big
magic.
boy.
Which one is that?
That's Desmond.
Hi,
25 pounds of Desmond.
Oh my goodness.
Oh,
He's getting older too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's about 12. Steve's not old. He just lived a life. Who knows? He's a fighting man, making the world safe for catocracy. So anyway, thank you.
Does
like
anyone
being
else
in a
have
haunted
any
house.
sharing things?
no.
We're all in moving portraits like Hogwarts.
That's true.
That's funny.
Well, thank you for joining me this evening. I know we went a little bit over, but we also started a little bit late, so it evens out.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm glad you're here. So
Thank you
yeah.
for doing the work.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
I think about things, so it's nice to share them.
Yeah. It's your one thing, two thing, three thing. Yeah.
Sharing. My
Many
thing.
thinking, fixing, sharing, growing, feeding, supporting.
Raising food.
Food.
Trying is my one thing.
Trying.
No one could ask for more.
See.
That's going to be on my headstone. I tried.
She tried.
You succeed more often than that.
With a picture of me going, all right, well, I guess that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice meeting you all.
Bye.
See you next month.
Bye.
Good luck all.
Bye.